right, it is the final open practice day of 49ers training camp. You can see the daughter's back, so I got the leaf in the ear. You know the vibe. She secured the CMC auto today. There we go. Nice day to end San Francisco 49ers training camp. But let's talk about some of the biggest takeaways of today. Obviously, at this stage of training camp, it almost becomes more about availability and health. And so with this situation that is kind of percolating with the 49ers, a lot of injuries that have been happening and piling up. You got someone back today. You got Jacob Cowing. So Jacob Cowing was out there at practice. I didn't see him get too involved in team period. I did see a pass intended or from Brock Purdy to Cowing in the back corner of the end zone. It was broken up. I couldn't even see who the jersey was. It might have been Pinnock. I believe it was Pinnock, but I couldn't really tell who broke it up. It was a nice PBU in the corner of the end zone, but it was nice to see Cowing back. However, we did have a player exit today, and it was interesting because I did the film work yesterday, and I spent a lot of time on the offensive line, specifically Drew Moss, Connor Colby, seeing how those guys were acclimating, and I noticed that Connor Colby was in with the starters at left guard. And I'm like, that's an interesting development. And then I see Ben Bartch, he was still there. And then after a couple reps, Ben Bartch walks to the locker room, and I'm like, ooh, that is not good, because as you guys know, Ben Bartch started training camp injured. He's slated to be the 49ers starting left guard. And the interesting thing about Connor Colby getting the look at left guard is that when Ben Bartch wasn't practicing, it was only Nick Zakelj at left guard. And then now that we've gone through training camp, Ben Bartch leaves, and it's Connor Colby who gets the start, at least in this team period. So that would tell you that Connor Colby has jumped Nick Zakelj in the depth chart. So I don't know what that means for Nick Zakelj. Nick Zakelj had an okay preseason game against the Denver Broncos, had a couple mental lapses, struggles with the bull rush. So we'll see. We'll see if Connor Colby and Drew Moss can prove enough. They could potentially both beat out Nick Zakelj. We'll have to see how that continues to progress. But again, with preseason going, it was a very light practice today. Not a ton going on. There was no one-on-ones. Pretty low key for the most part. It's cool to see Brandon Ayuk out there. You can tell that he wants to be active, be out there. He's playing catch for about solid 20 minutes. You can see he's trying to get that feel for routes and his cuts and all those different types of things. So that was cool to see. But again, it does seem like Ayuk is a ways away. We also saw Juwan Jennings doing a little bit of rehab work towards the end of practice. Again, nothing substantial. So that would seem to indicate that he's not close to returning either. So 49ers still remain thin at wide receiver. But let's get into some of the stuff in regards to team period. One of the things that was interesting today was Jair Brown wasn't participating in one-on-ones, warm-ups, any of that stuff. He was with the rehab group, stretching and moving very gingerly, and I'm like, uh-oh, because he was in full pads. I was like, he must have tweaked something. And then when team period started, he was out there starting. And it was also interesting to see that it was Jair Brown and Marquise Siegel getting the start at cornerback. And again, there's no Nick Bosa today. So the starting defensive line group was pretty interesting. It was Bryce Huff on one side, and then on the other side was Jonathan Garvin. Jonathan Garvin has quietly had a solid training camp. He was a guy that was on the practice squad last year, UFL guy, and he has quietly made plays, just like Marquise Siegel throughout this training camp. Not a lot of splash plays, but quality, quiet plays. And Garvin's out there running with the starters. So that was interesting. Alfred Collins getting first crack with the ones along Kalia Davis. Then you would have the next rep, CJ West would rotate in for Alfred Collins. So, and you also had Dallas Flowers, who was getting the start, opposite side of Diamador Lenore. Still no Upton Stout out there today. So again, it's an interesting development with some of the starting rotations that we're starting to see develop. But again, it was for the most part a pretty low-key practice. There were good, I'll tell you the best play of training camp today. It was a Dominic Puni touchdown. Yes, I did not stutter. A big boy touchdown. It was actually pretty cool. It looked like some type of screen of some sort. It was hard to see through the wash. All I could see is that the ball got tipped up and it fell into Dominic Puni's lap. That's why I anticipated it was a screen, because Dominic Puni was right there on a pass play, and he caught it and in stride took off. Dominic Puni's fast. Like I need to put a little bit of respect on Dom Puni's name. You guys know I'm a big Dominic Puni fan, big fan of his game. And when you got to see him running with the football, I was pretty impressed by that. He was moving quick. He literally beat the defense to the corner. It was a touchdown. It was a big boy touchdown. And, you know, he was going so fast, he ran into the padded wall. You know, I was like, oh, you know, big boys, tough to slow down when you get that momentum rolling. So I was like, oh, don't hurt nothing. But that was the funnest play of the day. But you had two dimes from Brock. It was a great way to end open practice for the 49ers. He had this one layered throw over the middle to George Kittle. I thought it was going to be interception. I was like, ooh. It looked like George was like triple covered, bodies all over the place. And then I'm watching the ball, and the ball just lands perfectly in George Kittle's hands. Somehow over these defenders, drops it right in the middle of these defenders. And I'm like, wow, that was I thought it was going to be a pick. So that was really cool to see. That was a really nice one. I was like, oh, okay, all right, we can work with that. And then we had another one to George Kittle from Brock Purdy up the right sideline, where Kittle was one-on-one coverage, pretty tight coverage, and kind of inside hip pocket. So it would be in his left hip pocket running up the right sideline. Kittle was covered. Come on, Shelly. And he put it literally perfect ball placement. Kittle caught it in stride, and he probably would have broke free for a touchdown in that scenario. So that was a really good one. You had another play where Brock hit CMC in the flat in red zone period, and it was nice. There was a blocker out in front of CMC, and he was able to get it in for a touchdown. And then they had a quarterback designed run in the end zone for a Brock Purdy touchdown. I don't want to get into too many specifics of the play design, but I will say it was a nice play. Well drawn up, and Purdy walked in for 6, relatively untouched. So pretty good day for those guys, but it was also a good day for the defense. I had Bryce Huff with 2 sacks on the day. I had Kalia Davis with a sack. I mentioned the PBU in the corner. I believe it was Pinnock. He had his jersey rolled up, so impossible to see the jersey numbers, but I was pretty sure that was him. But yeah, overall light practice. I would say like medium tempo, nothing too crazy. And yeah, so it was a good way to end 49ers training camp. That was a good one. That's it for me. I know the 49ers will have joint practices on Thursday with the Raiders, and my daughter has something that she wants to share apparently.
I'm sorry for snoring.
Oh, she said she's sorry for snoring. If you watched my Baldy's breakdown video, you could hear her snoring pretty good in the background. It's all good. Only took us 2.5 hours to get here this morning. So you know that means we have to wake up early and all that good stuff. But it was a good training camp. Look, let's see the hat.
This is all from like
Look at all the autos we got. Flip it around to the brim.
Lotto.
There we go. Boom. You got CMC today. We got Kittle on there. We got Fred Warner.
I think Kittle's.
We got Upton Stout. I think you got Dominic Purdy on there somewhere. You got John Weeks. I think that might have been the Fred. I think that's the Fred Warner auto.
Who's that?
That's number 76.
The big one?
So good training camp. Secured a lot of autographs for the kiddos. Always one of the best parts of bringing your kids to work with you. So that's it for us. 2025 San Francisco 49ers training camp in the books. If this team can stay healthy, this is a playoff team. But that is their biggest hurdle right now. With that team that we've seen all of training camp, that team can win football games. That team can dominate other teams if they can remain healthy. That's it for us. We're out. 2025 training camp in the books. Peace.